Hello my friends and welcome back to my channel. Okay, so I have been wanting to do more historical romance recommendation videos. It's my favorite subgenre, and I feel like I just kind of wanted to break them down by tropes and put like the best of the best and then some that are maybe less known together for you. So today's video is all about my favorite historical romances. I mean, they're not all my favorite, but these are really good ones. Some of these... Okay, I really like all of these, okay? Like, these are all really good, but are they my favorites? I don't know. I can't choose. I can't choose among my children. Anyway, this is all top-tier made men historical romances. Books that don't have dukes, earls, titles, things like that. These are men who scrap together a fortune and are going to use that to get the woman of their dreams to love them. So, that's what we're talking about today. Okay, so the first book that I want to talk about is actually, again, The Magic by Lisa Kleypas. One of the reasons I wanted to film this video is because we just recently read Persuasion. It was a reread for me because of the Netflix adaptation. We did it for the Rake Appreciation Society, and we were talking about how Wentworth was essentially one of the, maybe not one of the, but he was a made man. He was a naval captain, he went and made his fortune, and he came back and he didn't have a title or anything. And that got me thinking about this book, which is a very loose retelling of Persuasion. And yeah, so this one I think is top tier made men. So this book is about Aline and McKenna. Now Aline is a lady, her family is titled, her brother will be the Earl. This is the prequel to the Wallflower series. And when this book opens, she is a teenager, her late teens, and she has fallen in love with one of their servants, McKenna. McKenna is a servant, doesn't have a title, doesn't have any money, and they fall in love. They have a very young, love, beautiful tryst type of relationship. And McKenna sort of does it against his better judgment because he knows that he's not suitable for her in the eyes of society, and especially the eyes of her father. And Aline's father actually finds out, threatens Aline to do McKenna some harm and just ruin him basically if she doesn't break off their relationship. So she does, goes against her better judgment and breaks things off with him. And it's pretty heartbreaking. He completely believes her, his heart is broken, and he leaves, goes to the Americas, and makes his fortune and returns. He returns with the intention to sort of get revenge on her. He doesn't want to rekindle their love. He wants to prove to her that he actually did make something of himself, and yeah, so there. But of course, his feelings for her run deeper than that, and pretty soon when they're around each other, their love just can't be denied. Their love is so beautiful. I feel like this book is just achingly romantic. It is very angsty, and it is just perfection, and I think every time that I think of a made man historical romance hero, I always think of Lisa Kleypas. She does them a lot. I have another one of her books in here that's not at all the only ones she's done, but this one is fantastic, and if you have wanted to read this and maybe you watched Persuasion, recommend this. Okay, now the next book is also Lisa Kleypas, and this is one of my favorites of hers, and it is Dreaming of You. This is probably one of her most well-known books. Most people who have read historical romance have read this at one point. If you haven't, I highly recommend it. It's probably my favorite historical romance of all time. It's basically about our hero Derek Craven, who is the owner of a very successful gambling hell in London. And he is definitely a made man, comes from a very, very traumatic, damaged childhood and even adulthood, and he feels like he is damaged beyond repair, and anything lovely or soft, like, he's worried about touching it and contaminating it. Like, that's the type of man that he is. However, he ends up having his life saved when the heroine Sarah Fielding comes and rescues him at the hands of a bad, evil man who wants to kill him. Like, she literally saves his life. That's how they first meet. She's going to his gambling hell to research her new novel. She's a writer, and that's how they meet. And they have a series of meetings where they're interacting with one another, and it's beautiful. Their relationship develops very slowly, but also not, and they have just this great source of tension throughout the book. And the whole time, Derek is really the star of the show, I think, because he's struggling so much with this desire for Sarah and these feelings that he has for her that go beyond just physical desire, and he's very conflicted about what to do about that because of how he feels like he's just a beast and a terrible man and all that other stuff. So this is fantastic. I love it so much, and I highly recommend it. Okay, the next book is also one of my favorite books of all time. We're sort of going through, like, Crystal's greatest hits. All of these books, I love and adore them. This one is very near and dear to my heart, and it is The Rakess by Scarlett Peckham. This is a very different historical romance. It is a little bit grittier, a little bit darker in theme, and almost a little bit melancholy, which ultimately does have a happily ever after, but it's not a lighthearted romp for sure. It deals with some very serious issues. We have our heroine, Seraphina, who is the Rakess. She is a ruined woman. She is one of her missions is to bring down men who are harming women, and she's seeking for justice and equality between the sexes. And what she's actually doing is writing memoirs that will bring out the truth of the man who ruined her, who is a very well-known man in society and well-respected man in the ton. She also just lives a life of debauchery. You know, she is also a little bit, I don't know if you would call her, it's not said she's an alcoholic, but she definitely depends on alcohol to get through the day. You can tell she's really, really struggling with some dark things in her life, and she sort of uses alcohol and sex to numb those feelings. And she doesn't really believe in relationships. She wants to just have trysts. And so she meets our hero, Adam, who is a self-made man. He is an architect, and he's also a widower. He has 2 young children. He is one of the best heroes that I have ever read, and he is fascinated with Seraphina. He hasn't felt this way about anyone since his wife passed away, and he's struggling with his physical desire for her, but also he has a lot of respect for her, and he really has a lot of compassion for her. And watching their romance develop over the course of this book was so beautiful, because it's filled with so much longing, but also it's very angsty. So if you're not a fan of angst, I wouldn't recommend picking this up, because you know, Seraphina struggles a lot internally, and Adam really wants to just embrace her and love her, and she continuously kind of pushes him away because she considers herself to be damaged. She's really a conflicted main character, and I love that about her. And Adam is just so sweet and a little bit of a cinnamon roll, and just really finds himself falling for her, and it's just so beautiful. And the final conflict comes about that could potentially set them against one another, and it was just fantastic. I think this book is a masterpiece. I recently saw Scarlett Peckham revealed the cover for the next book in the series, which comes out next year, I believe, and I am so excited. I can't wait for it. So this hero, one of the best cinnamon rolls, kind of almost, well, no, not an alpha mellow. He's definitely a cinnamon roll hero, but he's just fantastic. Okay, the next book is one of my favorite Joanna Shupe books, and it is The Devil of Downtown. This book is actually the last book in this series. You can read this series out of order. All of these books, even if they aren't, Wanda, she's just getting into everything. All of these books, even if they are part of a series, you can definitely read them as a standalone if you want to. So I wouldn't include a book if you have to read it as part of a series. So Jack Mulligan is basically the kingpin of crime at this time in New York. He was an orphan, he was homeless, he was really the type of man that like made his life successful. And I mean, granted, it is a life of crime, but you know, if you're a fan of mafia romances, this might appeal to you because he is absolutely a criminal kingpin. He's also a very, not just only a powerful man, but he has this great sense of honor and justice and doing what's right. And that's really what leads him to be with, or to get to know the heroine Justine, who is one of the daughters that this series is based around. She comes from a very privileged family, very wealthy, and she is a self-proclaimed do-gooder, and she wants to bring men and husbands to justice who have abandoned their wives and children. She wants to make sure there's more working wages that are better, more livable, and she's really trying to make conditions better for people who are underprivileged in New York. So she comes to Jack with a case, a woman whose husband left her and abandoned her with all these children, and she specifically goes to Jack to get his help, to make this man pay for his family when he just abandoned them. And Jack is very, very caught off guard by Justine. He really finds her sense of right and wrong appealing, and he, like, you can tell this is a type of man who is like a crime lord, a crime boss, and you can tell that like her light is extremely appealing to him, and he just cannot stop thinking about her, can't leave her alone. And their love story is beautiful. I love this hero. He is one of the best Joanna Shupe heroes I have ever read, and this is, I think, the pinnacle of a made man hero. Honestly, to be fair, all the books in this series specifically, they're all made men heroes. The first book has a lawyer, the second book has a rival gambling hell owner, so they're all set in America in the Gilded Age, so these are not books about dukes, but I picked this one because I don't typically recommend it. I usually recommend The Prince of Broadway, book number 2, which is one of my favorite Joanna Shoops of all time. But this hero specifically fits this mold of a made man hero because of everything he had to endure and what he built for himself, so. Okay, now the next book I have to recommend is by Lorraine Heath. This is Between the Devil and Desire. So this book is one of my favorites in this series. This follows Jack Dodger, who was, again, an orphan, and he built, like, basically a den of iniquity, like a gentleman's club type of thing. And he is a man who has basically enjoyed every type of debauchery there is. And people know that, like, his reputation precedes him type of thing. But he has built an empire for himself, coming from nothing, and I love it so much. And I love how he interacts with the heroine, who actually is recently widowed, and her husband left all of his lands and fortune and everything to Jack, and left her son that she had with her husband, like, he is now his guardian. So Jack is the guardian, and that sort of puts the mother in a spot where she doesn't really have a say over her son. And this really highlights an excellent part of Jack's character, because not only, like, he's not just a crime lord, he's not just gathering wealth for himself, he also has a great sense of justice, which makes him almost sort of like, not necessarily robbing the rich to give to the poor, but he is a bit of a Robin Hood type of hero in that he wants to make things better for people, and he's not above, like, committing crimes to make that happen, and I just absolutely loved him. I loved this romance. I loved the boy in here too. I thought that it was just beautiful, and this was also very great plot-wise. It had, like, some really great plot twists in here too. But Jack Dodger is one of my favorite heroes Lorraine Heath has ever written, and boy, does he ever fit the bill for a made man hero. Okay, the next book that I have is Bombshell by Sarah McLean. This is her latest release from last year in the beginning of her new series. And this book is all about our heroine Cecily, who is basically a ruined woman. And she is leaning into that hard and living a life of more freedom, like she's embracing that role more than we would expect a woman in a historical romance to. Like, she definitely pushes the boundaries, and it's clear that this is a very modern historical romance in that way. But this romance worked for me so well because the hero is a self-made hero. He is so in love with Cecily, and he literally pines for her so much throughout this book. This isn't a story so much about how he became a self-made hero, but boy, if you love pining, if you like a really sort of a modernist spin on a historical romance that has excellent feminist themes, like, I would highly recommend this book. But truly for me, the best part of this book is the way that he loves the heroine. Like, it is fantastic. It is beautiful. There's so much longing on his part. Like, there's a little bit of that restraint and giving into it at times, and it's just like, it's so freaking good. Okay, and the last book that I have to recommend for you is one of my favorite books of all time, A Scoundrel of Her Own by Stacey Reid. This is, I think, the last book in her Sinful Wallflower series, and I think this is maybe my favorite. I love it so much. This book starts out with our hero and heroine as children, when the heroine is, you know, she's a lady, I believe she's the daughter of a marquess, and she is separated from her family in a carriage accident, and here comes our hero Devlin, who just sort of sees her in the river, and he rescues her. They end up lost in the woods together trying to survive as children. Like, I think they're like 11, 12 years old, like very young, and they form this really strong attachment, and Devlin just, like, has stars in his eyes when it comes to her, and he's committed to, he's gonna grow up, get out of his poverty, make a name for himself, make a fortune for himself, and he is going to have Ophelia, his Fifi. Like, he is going to have her, he's going to build his future. Everything that he does is so he can win this woman, and it's so beautiful. Like, the way that this book, for me, it says a lot about the hero's actions and the way he's building his life, and that's sort of an expression of his love and desire for the heroine. And there are definitely swoony moments too, but, like, the way, the sacrifices he made, everything he did to build his life was all so he could win this woman's love. And, like, that endears him to me so much. This book is beautiful, super romantic. I think it is just, I could gush about this book for hours. perfect made man hero. I love it so much. So, all right, there you have it. Those are some of my very favorite made men heroes in historical romance. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any recommendations to add to this list, please leave them in the comments so we can all share and read them some more, because I do love a hero who works really hard to make a name for himself, all in the name of love. So thank you so much for watching, my friends. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see y'all in my next video. This book is so beautiful. It's just... Wanda, what are you doing? Oh my goodness, you are so annoying. Oh, I love you.